Each and every one of us actually has a strong connection to our psychic awareness through our hair follicles. So it doesn't matter if you have long hair, short hair, straight hair, curly hair, or no hair. As long as you have hair follicles, this video can tell you a little something about the power of your hair. Every single piece of hair on your body originates from the hair follicle, which is a skin indentation that goes deep below the surface of the skin. So, in the deepest layer of the skin, there is a little bulb where your hair growth actually stems from. And these hair follicles actually have their own nerve, blood, and muscle supply. At the time of your birth, you actually have millions of hair follicles all over your body. And you are born with the exact same amount of hair follicles that you will still have at the time of your death. So the amount of hair follicles that you're born with never changes. It stays the same. Your face and scalp have the most concentrated amount of hair follicles. And that's very interesting, especially from the spiritual perspective, because it is inside of your scalp that you will find the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, and the hypothalamus, which are all important in your psychic communication. It's also interesting to note that it's those muscles and nerves that exist around the bulb of the hair that causes the sensation of goosebumps or that tingly feeling that you get up your spine if it's really cold outside or if energetically you received a very important spiritual message. So you may experience that tingling feeling, but that is because it is kind of like stimulating the hair growth. And in this article that I found in the Mind Journal, it states that many ancient cultures, such as Native Americans and certain indigenous groups, believed in the importance of long hair for intuition and spiritual connection. Some cultures forced enslaved people to cut their hair as a symbol of subjugation. And in an article I found on allure.com, that article states that ancient Greek deities were often depicted with long, flowing hair as a sign of power and divinity, similar to Zeus, Venus, and Apollo. In the Rastafarian faith, long locks are meant to mirror the mane of their leader, the lion, as physical proof of their devotion. For Hindus and Buddhists, long hair can represent beauty and perhaps dangerous sexuality, and cutting or shaving it off is surrendering worldly gifts to fully concentrate on the eternal. Some evangelical Christian women rely on a long sheath of hair to cover their heads in humility, and the Amish believe that the Bible instructs women to grow their hair long and married men to let their beards grow as a way of rising above secular fashion. So your hair is so much more than just a fashion statement that you make to the world. Your hair is literally a connection to your spiritual self. And it can also help you to deepen your intuition and to increase your power. And it's also an extension of your life force energy. In a blog I found on elizabethperu.com, it states that your hair is an extension of your life force. Consider that hair is an extension of your life force, and it's a particularly potent extension, given that your hair follicles extend down into the deeper layers of your skin, where the electrical frequency within your cells is at its most concentrated. This means that your hair becomes a conductor for invisible communication between your spiritual being and the world of matter and form, that being the physical. So our hairs are like little energetic antennas that are sending and receiving information through the energy of the environment that we are in. So this is kind of like the video I created about the aura and how we talked about the subtle energies that surround your physical body. So again, your hair or the follicles of your hair actually bring in and transmit different frequencies, based on situations, people, places, and things that you are experiencing. So your hair is literally communicating with the subtle energies within your environment. So each and every hair follicle that you have on your body is the thing that is sending and receiving energy. But the strands of hair that are growing out of the hair follicle are like the antennas. So the longer and more healthy your hair is, it is true that it could have a more far-reaching effect as far as the energy is concerned. But even if you have little or no hair due to illness or even just hereditary baldness, that doesn't mean that you're not sending and receiving information from the world around you, because that is taking place through the follicle and not the hair itself. There is also this spiritual belief that if your hair is left uncut, then it will grow to just the right length for you as an individual. In that Mind's Journal article, it states that the length is determined by the person's unique energy requirements. Cutting hair is believed to hinder the flow of cosmic energy into the body. It also states that allowing hair to grow to its full natural length is thought to invite spiritual, physical, and emotional growth. Long hair is believed to serve as a transmitter and receiver of subtle messages from the cosmos. I also find it kind of interesting that whenever people are going through major life changes, that is usually when they decide that they need to change their hair in some way. So for me personally, when I was a senior in high school, I decided to cut all my hair off. At the time, it was a very popular hairstyle called a pixie cut. But the haircut coming at the time where I was going through this life transition, it just made total sense that I felt the need to just chop all my hair off. Now, another interesting thing though about cutting the hair is that it does give you the sense of a release. So your hair actually stores memories within it, energetically speaking. So technically, when you go and just cut all your hair off, then you're actually releasing and letting go of who you once were. And it's kind of symbolic for beginning again, like having a certain rebirth in your life. If you are desiring long hair and want to grow your hair out, I do have a little advice that I found in the book Moles or Birthmarks and Their Signification to Man and Woman by Maud Wheeler. It was a book originally published in the 1800s, but get this. Within the book it says, most of us have probably been told at some time or another that the hair should be cut before the moon is full, if length is desired, and when the moon is at the full, if thickness is preferred. When the moon is on the wane, it is not considered advisable to cut the hair, as the growth is then supposed to be less favorable. So I found that interesting years ago when I got that book, and I've been cutting my hair after the new moon, but before the full moon, each and every time. So whenever it's time for me to give myself a trim, I always take a look at the moon phases to ensure that I'm going to get the most favorable growth out of the cycle of the moon. Another thing to keep in mind is that it is also a disruption in the natural flow of energy through the hair if the hairs have split ends. So it's important to maintain your hair through either conditioning it or, putting oil in the hair and wrapping it. Or you can simply trim those split ends so that you don't have as much disruption to the flow of energy that's taking place. It's also very important to keep your hair both physically and spiritually clean. So, in addition to the physical cleaning, which is shampooing and conditioning your hair, it is also important to remove the negative and unwanted energies in a spiritual way. So one way that I like to do it is to have the Reiki begin to flow through my hands. And you can do this even if you are not attuned to the Reiki energy, because it's all about your intention. So I get the Reiki to flow, and then I just ask that any negative and unwanted energies just be released from the strands of my hair. And then I just run my hands through my hair while holding on to that intention that I'm removing that negative, unwanted, and stagnant energy from the strands of my hair. Now, another thing that I really like to do to kind of stimulate the life force in my hair follicles is to give myself a scalp massage every day. So all I do to do that is a very quick thing to do. I just use my fingertips and I massage in little circles in each direction, basically like all over my scalp. Just use your fingertips, apply some pressure, and then just move your fingertips in little circles. And something like this exercise is really stimulating to the follicles of my hair. Like even right now, I'm getting that feeling of goosebumps or chills up my spine simply because I'm massaging my scalp. Historically speaking, cultures all around the world have seen a very significant connection between the hair and the divine realm. So your hair can be seen as something that connects you to the divine energies. And your hair can have a deep spiritual and religious significance, and even carry a message for you from your own spirit, guiding you towards your own evolution. If you are balding or shedding and thinning hair, then that doesn't mean that you are lacking a connection with the divine. My hair is constantly shedding, and every single time I wash my hair, it seems like it sheds more and more. But this isn't anything really to worry about at all, because shedding is a natural cycle, and you see it in nature all the time. Shedding hair is similar to a release and a letting go so that you can allow new growth to come in. Similar to leaves falling in the autumn or to a snake shedding its skin so that it can grow. So I like to see shedding hair as a form of release, a release and a letting go of what is no longer serving you. And that makes way for the new growth to come in. So for new opportunities, right? So spiritually speaking, if you find that you have a lot of hair shedding taking place, or if your hair is shedding more than it usually does, or if you have a dream about hair shedding, then that could be a message or a sign from your spirit that some type of purification or release is necessary in your life. Maybe it's time to declutter your environment or to let go of old habits that are just no longer serving you. So the shedding of the hair can just mirror the shedding that takes place naturally in cycles. Now, a shedding of the hair could also be a sign for you that it's time to let go of old thoughts and attitudes, allowing for, a new open-mindedness to come through. So if you notice that you've had more than the usual hair shedding, then it could be a sign to you as well about letting go and letting new growth take place in your life. There are multiple reasons why a person might be bald or balding. And so, of course, there is the hereditary inheritance of baldness, and there is illness that sometimes could lead to baldness. Or there is also some people out there who just make the choice to shave their heads entirely. A bald head can actually symbolize multiple different things. It can symbolize wisdom of age. It can symbolize confidence and security in who you are. But baldness can also, again, signify an illness or even a punishment in some cultures. But in other cultures, it can be a release of one's ego so that you can focus solely on the divine. A bald or balding head associated with old age is a sign of maturity, a higher social status, and wisdom from life experience, which gives you an inner authority. And baldness can also be a sign of confidence and strength. Because if you shave your head bald, it's a sign that you have a confidence about yourself and an inner strength that is shown through this decisive commitment to shave the head. And it's also just a deliberate choice to embrace, your appearance rather than trying to hide the hair loss that might naturally be taking place, therefore leading to a greater confidence in the self. It can also be a sign of a transformation of identity. So if you shave your head, this can signify like letting go of the old you to allow the new you to be fully embraced. Because your hair is so deeply connected to your ego and your sense of identity. So the act of shaving your head can be a whole identity transformation. I think in terms of like when someone is a military recruit and they have to shave their hair off, or people like Britney Spears who go through major life changes and suddenly have this urge to shave their head entirely. In many cases, historically, a shaved head can also symbolize illness that is in this transformation into healing, such as a patient who is undergoing chemotherapy treatment and chooses to shave their head as a way of letting go of the illness and making way for a transformation and healing to take place. And in some cultures, baldness from a shaved head can actually be seen as a punishment because it's like a way to cause shame in the individual. And in some cultures and religions, the shaving of the head is a form of release of vanity and a release of the ego. Basically, a release of the outer self so one can focus solely on the inner self. For instance, in Buddhism, shaving the head is a core part of the ordination process for monks and symbolizes a renunciation of ego, sensuality, and worldly identity. And in Hinduism, shaving the head is practiced as a sign of devotion, penance, or gratitude, and is sometimes seen as a symbol of surrendering one's pride to the divine. Just remember that hair shedding and balding is not a loss when viewed spiritually. It is actually a vital part of your transformative spiritual journey. Face reading is an ancient art form that reveals personality traits based on facial characteristics. The definition of physiognomy is a person's facial features or expression, especially when regarded as indicative of character or ethnic origin. We are going to be zooming in on one very specific part of the face, and that is the hairline. So as usual, just like any other type of reading, this is not going to reveal your entire personality. We are only zooming in to one small aspect of yourself that will be linked to the shape of your hairline. It is important to remember that face reading is not fortune telling. So the face reading is actually an art form where you can see certain characteristics on a person's face and link that to particular personality traits that may be present within that individual. So basically, this is not like scientific fact. We are just looking at different facial features and we are pulling insights from those features. So let's go ahead and dive right into the hairlines and what characteristics may be present for these different types of hairlines. Similar to other rounded features on the face, if you have a rounded hairline, this means that you're very kind-hearted. You are very open with sharing yourself with others, and you have an emotional intelligence about yourself. So people with a rounded hairline are approachable, creative, responsible, and motivated. So these kind of people often get help from others and they enjoy happiness and longevity. This is a very social type of hairline. And men with rounded hairlines are good-tempered, but then again, women with the rounded hairline can sometimes be a little tough and independent. If you have a squared or a straight hairline, then that will indicate that you might have a little bit of a rebellious nature about you. It's almost like you don't want to follow the rules that have been laid out by someone else. You would prefer to make your own rules. So a person who has this straight or squared hairline are generally very intelligent, they're good at planning, and they're down-to-earth and responsible people. So people with the square or straight hairline are very competent when it comes to their career. And men specifically with this type of hairline are generally very strong leaders in a company or a society. If you have an M-shaped hairline, that would mean that your hairline goes further back on the sides than what is generally common for a hairline. So with this M-shaped hairline, you are more of an open-minded person who can even make intuitive leaps. So many scientists and philosophers actually have this type of M-shaped hairline because they can combine analysis with gut instinct to come up with a solution to any problem. So people with the M-shaped hairlines are usually versatile, successful, and well-known. If you have a widow's peak, it is basically a V shape in the center of the forehead. This hairline is also very similar to the M-shaped hairline that we just talked about, but the sides don't go back quite as far. I have a slight widow's peak here, so as you can see, it just kind of comes down a little bit in the center, and the sides don't go back quite as far as the M. But for anyone who has this hairline with the widow's peak or the small V coming down in the middle of the forehead, this would represent someone with extra charisma and enhanced creativity. Also, people with the widow's peak can carry extra sex appeal, whether man or a woman. So this hairline represents someone who can be seductive and sensual. Someone who has a zigzagging or an uneven hairline is going to be a person who has a lot of emotional ups and downs. So these people might be a little bit more emotionally unstable than someone with a different, more evenly shaped hairline. If you have a hairline that has sides that come down very low near the eyebrow, then that will indicate a strict upbringing. So people with these low-sided hairline is going to be a person who is most likely to have very good manners and a very high awareness of other people, but they might take longer to go out on their own or be comfortable with breaking the rules that they were so strictly brought up in. People who have a very low and narrow hairline that shows very little forehead will indicate a person who may have been born kind of stubborn, and they might even be more on the lazy side. So they may even have some relationship issues in their life as well. I think it mostly indicates that they have less of an open mind because less of the forehead is showing. If you have a very high and broad forehead, like me, then that would indicate someone who has the ability to think deeply and analyze situations. So if you have a high and broad hairline, then generally you would be smart and talented and possibly even very adaptable. So it's all basically stemming to that excellent thinking ability that they have, making it so that people with the high and broad hairline can really succeed in any field as long as they put their mind to it. But the people with these high hairlines can generally also be very irritable, angry, or even high anxiety if they're not careful. In the last video I made, I talked specifically about baldness or thinning or shedding hair. But in this video, I'm talking specifically about the hairline. So if your hairline is balding or receding, then for you, that would indicate that you have extra drive and ambition, because this is a sign of high testosterone, which has created this type of hair loss. So this basically translates into someone who has a lot of drive and success, and this can lead to financial success as well. So especially in Chinese face reading, they consider a receding or balding hairline to be a very lucky sign. It is important to remember that in this video, we are zooming in to only your hairline. So your hairline is one individual piece of the whole puzzle that is you. So your hairline is not going to be the only part of your story that you should be focusing on. You should be taking a look at all the different areas of your face so that you can then get a full picture of what your face is telling the world.